Evening, everyone. Thanks, Gavin, for that introduction. I'm going to try and stay out of politics and stick to digital sustainability. So this is just a little introduction of what's happening across government. There's a lot of activity. Gavin sort of introduce some of that, and I'll just sort of give you some background before we go into that. This is just a short profile of myself. I think if you want to follow me, LinkedIn, it's a good follow. And I'm one of the few people across government who's working on the problem of digital sustainability. So just some context about my department. So we serve around 20 million citizens. At some point, most people in this country will interact with us, whether it's through being born or taking on a pension or even ending your life. Eventually, you'll probably have some interaction with us. It's almost guaranteed. We have around 100,000 staff and contractors. I like to point out we're bigger than the British Army. We spend about £1 billion per year on IT, 5,000 ICT specialists, and AI is a big part of our transformation. And obviously, we have a significant environmental footprint. Now, if we look around the world, what's happening, we're seeing a growing sense of disquiet, I think, around the impact of digital on our environment. And that's, as Gavin alluded to, it's things like water use, but like power use, land use, and so forth. Just a few images from different countries. You can see South America, the United States, Ireland, looks like Holland as well. There's various movements that are pushing back against the rise of digital and data. And, this is, I think, having other repercussions in terms of people's attitudes towards the way technology is maybe controlling their lives, or a sense of loss of autonomy. So to go beyond some of the superficial things, this is from the United Nations Digital Economy Report, and they've looked at the way that digitization is spread around the world. And we can see that if we look at this is showing the number of devices and connections per person by region. And you can see North America, Western Europe, we're looking at sort of between 8 and 12, 13 devices per person. So there's definitely a problem of inequality in terms of where digital is being consumed, and how we can address some of these inequalities is really a key thing for me personally. Now, AI is being talked a lot about in this space, the way that AI is now consuming more resources than was originally thought a few years ago when people set their net zero targets. So going back to sort of 2019, 2020, Microsoft and other companies set very ambitious net zero targets to be net zero or even carbon negative by 2030 or shortly afterwards. What's actually happened is they've moved in the opposite direction. They're actually increasing their emissions through the growth of data centers, AI systems. Just the rise of digital is now pushing these climate targets out of reach, it would seem. So there is real concern in the industry that digital is no longer the sort of the clean technology it was talked about, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Artificial intelligence is another driver of resource consumption. So one email, for example, is thought to consume around half a liter of water. And there's a good website. There's Save the AI is a sort of a spoof website about the need of AI to feed its hungry energy and water things. And if I think about myself, I need about 8 glasses of water per day. But if I were to move my email habits to AI, this is roughly the amount of water I'd need for AI to run my email for me. So we're not in a sustainable situation with digital in general. A lot of stuff coming out of France, which is quite interesting. This is the most recent report by greenit.fr, is a French digital sustainability group. And they looked at, so we sometimes hear in this space that digital consumes around 4% or produce about 4% of CO2 globally, which sounds like a small percentage. It's more than aviation, but it still seems small. But if we were to live within planetary boundaries and think about what's the actual amount we can consume or emit without endangering life on Earth, then digital is actually producing about 40% of emissions for a 2-ton carbon lifestyle, and maybe a third of resources. So it's over consuming, and we need to rethink our relationship with digital and data. And this is a question I ask sometimes: are we building a future that no one actually wants? We're driving ourselves forward to this techno future, but is it something that is in service of life and the planet? So the United Nations is calling for a rethink around digital sustainability, where we have some places have insufficient digitization, so socially unsustainable digitization. So, for example, access to education or information and so forth might be in a shortfall in developing countries, and in countries like ours in the global north, we have a surplus of data and IT and so forth. And it's about moving into that safe space of the donor economics model, where there's enough digital but not an overconsumption of it. And similarly, that there's talks of digital sobriety. So this is the green IT thing from France again, and they're talking about a quadrupling almost of emissions from digital by 2030 2050 without some sort of rethink of our relationship to digital and data. Now, what's happening in the government, where I am closely involved with different departments, collectively we've come together, and I think historically the civil service has tried to solve problems by departments. So you have Ministry of Defense deals with one thing, taxation something else, health and disability for another department. But with something like climate change, it's not the job of DEFRA to solve climate change. It's every department needs to think about their relationship with the climate, the environment. And for that reason, I've been working very closely with departments. GDS is very involved in this. DEFRA is very closely involved. Ministry of Justice, HMRC, I could list a lot of different departments that we're working with. And there's a real push now to make our digital services as sustainable as possible and as small a footprint as possible. So there's also, in addition to that, we've got a group called the GDSA, which is the Government Digital Sustainability Alliance. And this is a collaboration between the private sector, some of the big IT companies, but some of the small ones as well, collaborating with UK government to come up with buying standards, reporting standards, circular economic principles and things, and embedding that much deeper in the way we buy technology and deliver technology. We're still at the early stages, so there's a lot of work to do. But I think there's very positive signs. One of the things I can mention is that DEFRA has published these greener services principles, which I've helped shape a little bit. And these are 10 principles for greener services, so sort of a set of guidelines that service designers and delivery people can use, that backed up by evidence and training and so forth. In my own department, we're producing a carbon calculator. So this is a personal emissions calculator for your digital footprint. So you can see your digital habits, like your use of emails and Teams and your file habits of saving files and things, number of devices you have, and it'll give you like a little bit of an eco rating and help you think about your own relationship to digital. So that's something we're rolling out, hopefully to the entire of DWP by the end of the summer. We'll see sort of how that works out, but that's the ambition. And as Gavin mentioned in the introduction, this is the first update to the design principles since 2012. So, more than a decade's gone past. We haven't really thought about this until quite recently. And there's now this new 11th principle, minimize environmental impact. And I think it's a nice, succinct, short little chunk of text that describes the mission that we're on to reduce our environmental impact, but also not just for ourselves, but create hopefully a cascading effect. And other countries will hopefully take on board some of these principles and learn from what we're doing as well. I think the final thing I wanted to sort of talk about is that we often think there's no choice. We don't have the ability to change the course of our direction. And this is Holland, 1978. You can see the heavy traffic and things, and the decision made, we can rework our relationship to our built environment and produce a more human-friendly, planet-friendly cityscape. And even in London, I've seen big changes in the way that cycling is now much more doable than it was 10 or 15 years ago. So we do have the ability to change things, and sometimes we can forget that. If you want to learn more, I'm going to be doing a longer session called the Digital Impact Pitch. There's a couple of sessions in April. There's another one in May. This is a remote or in-person event where we spend 60 minutes kind of exploring the whole topic of digital sustainability. I think I've done 8 minutes. I think that's about on time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ishmael.